$50 million on ads just for Prop 50, which is in less than 40 days. There is SB 771, which is an attack on free speech on social media platforms. And in a continued trend, more Republicans are outpacing Democrats with voter registration here in the state of California. Is a red wave or a red revival happening here in California? All that and more on this episode of the California Underground podcast, happening right now. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the California Underground podcast, the most trusted podcast for all things California politics. I am your host, Phil. We got a lot to get to tonight, including the spending on Prop 50 for the ads. Obviously, it's in 40 days, so there's going to be a lot of money spent on it. Over $50 million, I believe, at this point. SB 771, which is an attack on free speech here in California. And then we're going to talk about Republicans outpacing Democrats for voter registration. And before we get started, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, like, share, comment, review, hit the notification bell so you know when we're going live or a new video pops up. And as always, joining me, my trusty co-host, the best, the fastest researcher in the West, Camille. How are you doing tonight, Camille?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am good. A couple housekeeping things. Next week, I will be out of town. Celebrating my 40th birthday. So I will not be doing the podcast on Tuesday, but we will probably do it Wednesday or Thursday, and we'll let you guys know. So there is going to be a podcast next week. It just won't be on Tuesday next week. So that's the first thing. Also, we're toying with this idea of starting a members-only Telegram. So a members-only Telegram would take the conversation off of, Instagram or whatever social media platform. We'd be able to share with you like up-to-the-minute news, commentary, because there's a lot of news that happens in California, and we don't always get to it because we can't do all of it in podcast. It'd be 2 or 3 hours long, and I'm not sure. I know you guys love us, but I don't know if you'd tune in for a 3-hour podcast. I also don't want to be up until 11 a.m. doing it. But there's a lot of things that are happening, breaking news and stuff like that we want to comment on. It'd also be like cultural stuff and like our thoughts, Camille and I, and you guys would be able to comment as well. So if you are watching, you can let us know in the comments later or right now if you would be interested in joining a Telegram program. We're thinking about like a monthly fee of like $2.99 or something. We're going to try and keep it as low as possible. If you're interested, let us know in the chat or in the comments. All right. Should we just dive right into our first topic, which is Prop 50, or do you have something you want to talk about?
I wanted to just add, because I wanted to clarify that we're not going anywhere or changing anything with the podcast. The Telegram channel would just be in addition, like, because you said we're taking the stories off Instagram. There's always going to be that on Instagram. It's just more like, there's breaking news like every hour at this point, and we don't get on here and discuss national issues, and we don't necessarily have all kinds of time to really get deep. And it's not like it's like Phil and I being like, oh, we're the authority and we are all knowing or anything like that. It would definitely be a community. Like, we would be sharing news throughout the day, and everyone gets to chime in who's there, give opinions, ask questions, all that. And we would just like be able to then dive into national issues, cultural issues, religious stuff like that. So it wouldn't change anything regarding the podcast or how we run Instagram. It would just be in addition. So
exactly. Yeah. Good point. It's a good way to, it's also a good way for people who are kind of in this community to connect with each other. Like, it doesn't have to just be me and Camille. Yeah. It could be to hear what you guys have to say. And that way you guys can share your opinions throughout the week. And you don't have to wait for a show every Tuesday or any of the videos that come out between then or Instagram or stuff like that. So that would be the point of it. But with that said, obviously with a short runway for Prop 50, there was going to be a lot of money spent on these ads. We knew there was going to be a lot of money. Charles Munger, who I'm always flabbergasted at how much money people like the Mungers have, because he just like no problem like cuts a $10 million check for Prop 50. Like, he just drops money like it's crazy. But people are dropping money left and right. It's like I said, I think the total's over 50 million at this point. It's going to go like even higher by the time we get to November. I could At this point, I imagine it's probably going to be like $100 million in money spent on this Prop 50 campaign between the for and the against. There was an ad, though, that came out the other day, and I saw it, and I don't want to say I'm shocked because I was fully expecting them to go this route. But we'll just go ahead and watch it, and then we'll add our commentary. If you want me to pause, let me know. We'll pause there.
Who's behind the campaign against Prop 50? Mega millionaire Charles Munger Jr. What's Munger's game? Munger gave lavishly to anti-abortion and anti-LGBT extremists. Now,
there it is. 11 seconds in. They couldn't help themselves. They just couldn't help themselves. What is Prop 50 about?
Well,
it's about abortion.
We were told it was to save democracy.
No, it's about abortion. It's about abortion. Democrats, they have their ace in the hole, and they just can't wait. They just can't wait to play it. And I guess with only 40 days, less than 40 days, they had to play abortion right away. And I was like, okay, I mean, sure. You don't have much time. You might as well play that card as soon as, and I imagine this is going to be played a lot. And so they're playing that right away.
He's spending millions to help Trump rig the election.
And there's the second part. So we got the double whammy of Democratic strategy in basically any election anywhere that has nothing to do with Trump or anything like that. Trump and abortion. That's all they're going to say is Trump, abortion, Trump, abortion. They're going to be yelling from the rooftops about Trump and abortion from here until November, even though that has quite literally nothing to do with what this fight is about. But they're going to scream it. They're going to scream it.
The California GOP, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. The California GOP needs to quickly release a deck of cards just like this, with all proceeds going to fight Prop 50.
That'd be fine. Like these cards with Charles Munger and Trump on them.
And then, add our 9 congressional our congressional politicians that we have in California. All 9 of them.
All 9. It wouldn't cover the whole deck, but
No.
50 puts our elections back on a level playing field, protects independent redistricting, and gives the power to the people of California. Stop.
No. I hate that line because it is so and I don't know if you've noticed, not only in this ad, but like all the ads that are for Prop 50, they all kind of, they say this squishy language of like, it's to return power to the people and preserve democracy. And they kind of say like across the country, they kind of allude to like, it's to protect democracy across the country. And it's like, no, this is a California specific thing. All they're doing is redistricting to disenfranchise voters here in California. And this has nothing to do with protecting democracy across the country. But they like to say these vague things about protecting democracy and give power to the people. You're not giving power to the people because the people voted to have an independent commission back in 2008. I believe was it 2008 with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's why he's so adamantly against this. And the people said, we want an independent commission. Polls showed that people support the independent commission. The people of California said they support the independent commission. And now they're saying it's power to the people. No, it's power to legislative Democrats up in Sacramento and their kind of connected lobbyists and their buddies like Paul Mitchell, who are redrawing the maps, who's married to Jody Hicks, who is the head of the Planned Parenthood PAC. So draw from that what you will, but it has nothing to do with power of the people. We're giving the power that we had with the independent commissioning, and we're giving it right back to the legislature, and they're going to gerrymander the hell out of this state just for their own political gain. So it has nothing to do with power to the people. That's for sure.
Trump, end Munger's game, and save democracy. Yes.
And save democracy. So that's one of their ads. I mean, it's 20 seconds. Obviously, they're going to scare you with the abortion and Trump and how they have to give the power to the people. It's all about democracy. So they hit the whole Democratic like trifecta of like golden talking points, which is it's about abortion, it's about Trump, and it's about protecting democracy. First off, like I said, we're not voting on abortion. That's enshrined in the California Constitution. Okay. Nothing's going to happen to your abortion rights here in California. It's enshrined in the California Constitution. When they overturned Roe v. Wade, it didn't ban abortions. It just said it went back to the states, and California voted to add it to the Constitution. So no abortion rights are going to be harmed here in California by voting yes or no on Prop 50. Trump, they keep trying to blame all of this redistricting in Texas on Trump, which we were, lucky enough to have Mike Garcia explain this to us. And I didn't even know this. This all came from a federal ruling and a federal case started by the Biden DOJ against Texas because of their maps, saying that their maps were not properly drawn or that they didn't include the right, communities or minorities or something like that. So that is not, Trump didn't start the redistricting in Texas. And then finally, you're not protecting democracy because you are disenfranchising voters. Like you're having people who are way up in the state of Jefferson, and I think it's in Moab I'm trying to remember the name of the county, Moab or Mocab, is being drawn into Mendocino County, which is heavily blue. So you have a heavily red district that is reaching out and grabbing Democratic voters from Mendocino County, obviously Napa Valley, all that, and trying to turn it more leaning blue rather than strong red. So no, it's not about protecting democracy. You're actually disenfranchising voters here in California. But that's what they're going to play. They're going to play that on rerun. I bet you're going to see that over the next month, and it's going to drive you nuts over the month of October. So what are your thoughts about this entire ad?
I feel like you actually said most of the stuff that I was going to say. I'm going over my notes real quick because, like, as you mentioned, abortion is already codified into our state constitution. It's not going anywhere. I don't even think Republicans are trying to take that away. I think they gave up on that. Like maybe in a red state, they're fighting for it, but in California, I don't even think anyone's like addressing that, honestly. And let's see. Yeah. So I literally wrote exactly what you said because I was like, this quickly changed from fighting Trump and saving democracy to all of a sudden MAGA, anti-abortion, anti-LGBTQ. So I think that's pretty much my notes on it. I'm just checking if I had any, sassy remarks. I don't think I did.
Okay. Well, then we kind of nailed it, I guess. That was it. There was I'm trying to think. I saw this. I want to see if I can pull it up, but I must have lost the tweet. I see so many tweets over the course of the week that, I should have bookmarked it. But this all came about because I saw that they had spent like $50 million on, between the two of them, they've already spent like $50 million on all of this, and we're barely into October. And the big push is going to be in October when we're getting close. It's going to be down to the wire. It's going to be those last 2 weeks, and we're spending millions and millions of dollars on these ads. So I fully expect that there's going to be $100 million dumped into this special election. Now, that's not counting the fact that we as taxpayers are going to end up paying probably around $280-300 million just for this special election, just to do this. So those are two different numbers. We have the $50 million right now, which is the running total for what they're spending on campaign ads. Not to mention Gavin Newsom's whole PAC is raising what did George Soros drop like $10 million into his PAC for this? Like, this has become like the new recall for Newsom. He figured out the recall was a great way to make money. It was a great way for him to raise money because he took that war chest, turned it into the Campaign for Democracy or whatever the heck he calls his PAC that we all know is going to be funneled into his presidential PAC the minute he runs for president. And that's what this all is. If you don't understand that politicians can kind of set up these PACs and stuff and then raise money, and then those PACs, when they get dissolved, they can shovel money to different PACs or they can shovel it to campaigns. So this is all just a great way for him to build a war chest going into 2028. Win or lose, Gavin Newsom's going to make a ton of money off of this for his presidential run. And we're all just going to be sitting here going, why the hell are we losing our representatives? Because you don't like Trump or something like that? Oh, because we're saving democracy or something like that?
We're saving abortion, really. We're
saving abortion, which, again, is enshrined in the California Constitution. There's nothing you can do. Nothing's going to be affected here. And I don't know how to tell. I can say that until I'm blue in the face, but people will really think that that anything that, outside of them passing a congressional federal law banning abortion, which they would never do because it'd be political suicide for Republicans, nothing outside of that is going to change what happens here in California when it comes to abortion. So a state proposition about redistricting has nothing to do with abortion, but they had to get that in there. They had to get the Charles Munger's anti-abortion. Okay. So I don't know. Should we also say Charles Munger is a San Francisco Giants fan, and if you're a Dodgers fan, you should vote no or yes on Prop 50 because you don't like the Giants? Let's just bring in all other extraneous things that have nothing to do with it.
I would like to discuss his race and religion because that's really what's important.
Sure. I mean, that has everything to do with the redistricting right now and what the fight of Prop 50 is all about. But that's basically the update. So that's what's going on. Prop 50, you're going to start seeing these ads. If you haven't already started seeing these ads are going to start popping up, even on YouTube, which is the worst. Even if you're not watching local TV or network TV, someone said, I heard he sweats too. Well, sweating's bad too. Someone said in the comments that he sweats. They can't have that. Got to vote.
He brushes his teeth. He might eat graham crackers. You never know. This guy's wilding out over there, and we're not even.
You can't. Gotta vote yes on all of this. So.
I was gonna say hi, chat. I see people are chatting. I'm blind, you guys. I have to be like this to read the comments. But hi, I see you guys are chatting. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, wait, hold on. I found it. Let's see. I'm going to pull it up right now. So this is the tweet. Ad spending for the California redistricting referendum has topped 50 million per ad impact poll since the start of September. Supporters have spent about 32 million, booking ad time. Opponents about 27 million. So kind of right down the middle as of this point. So a little close. I mean, 4 is going to spend a little bit more, but all right. Next story, which a lot of people have been asking us to cover. I just released a video a couple days ago kind of going into it. I'm not going to go as in depth. If you want to go watch the video, it just got released this morning. It's kind of going into my legal theories as to why I think SB 771 is completely unconstitutional and why it's likely never going to see the light of day. But doesn't mean I didn't want to talk about it on the live so I can get your guys' opinion, those in the chat and stuff like that. And also Camille's opinion as well. So, somebody said, hey, Camille, to you in the chat. So,
oh, hi, somebody.
Someone said, oh, I didn't know that. I guess that you're checking the comments. So yeah, Camille sees the comments too. So it's not just me. So if you want to give a shout out to Camille or ask her a question, feel free to do so. So let's watch this clip real quick about SB 771, and then we'll discuss afterwards.
Major heat online tonight over a proposed California law. It attempts to hold social media companies accountable for threatening content.
But some conservative social media accounts and personalities have been warning that it could severely limit free speech and result in major penalties against people. KCRA3's political director Ashley Zavala is getting the facts on this proposal.
To silence us on social media.
A proposed California law is getting into the center of the free speech debate online. Former reality TV star turned political activist Spencer Pratt posting this video Thursday, urging people to call Governor Newsom to reject Senate Bill 771. The bill specifically targets major social media platforms such as Facebook and X. It would place up to $1 million fines and civil penalties for the role platforms could play in hate crimes by amplifying threatening content or using algorithms that push it. State law already punishes individual people who do so.
I will guarantee you that Newsom thinks me calling him out for letting 12 senior citizens burn alive in Pacific Palisades. I would guarantee him and his social media team would consider that hateful content.
In no way, shape, or form.
I'm going to say something that's probably unpopular opinion. And I know we've reached out to him to be on the show, but I guess he's too busy. I think Spencer Pratt thinks the governor cares more about him than he really does. That might be an unpopular opinion. I think Spencer Pratt thinks he pushes the buttons that make things happen in Sacramento with Gavin Newsom. But that's just my thought. I don't know.
Or is that accurate?
Go ahead.
I think Spencer misunderstands this bill. I think a lot of people misunderstand this bill because I feel like Spencer's comment was basically like, Newsom's going to go after me and find me. He didn't say that, but I think that's kind of what his thought process was, is I'm personally going to get fined for what I say. And that's why he's passing this bill. Mm-hmm. And I know we're going to dive into, it's not fining individuals. We'll get into that. You can roll the video.
Ed Howard is the senior legal counsel for the Children's Advocacy Institute at the University of San Diego School of Law. He helped Democratic lawmakers write the proposal.
The First Amendment protects offensive, salacious, insensitive, horrifying, terrible things that people say. The bill is in fact about the right of Mr. Pratt, the right of me, and the right of every single one of your viewers to be protected from threats of violence in response to his speech, if those threats of violence would legitimately and reasonably place a regular old person in fear for their lives or being harmed.
Is this an attempt?
I think I said this in the video that came out this morning. But it's worth repeating with Mr. Howard here. First off, this is just proof that you can find any lawyer or law professor to spew whatever crazy legal theory that fits your political narrative, as long as you're an authority like a law professor or something like that. Is what he's describing what basically got Charlie Kirk killed? Is that what we're describing? Because he's saying, well, this bill protects you from people being violent against you for the speech, for what you incite. Well, first off, that kind of weird tangential logical chain doesn't make sense to me. But is he saying that social media companies aren't doing enough to police the violence that is incited by social media and people on social media? Does he feel like Charlie Kirk was a victim of people calling out Charlie Kirk and calling him a Nazi and stuff like that and inciting people to violence and to anybody else? I wonder if he feels the same way about what happened to Charlie Kirk regarding this bill, because as far as I know, Charlie Kirk is the most prominent person to suffer violence at the hands of probably people on social media who didn't like Charlie Kirk. So I don't know. I was just my thoughts on it. I wonder if he felt the same way about that.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I'd love to ask Mr. Howard. So do you mean this bill was kind of inspired by what happened to Charlie Kirk and all the people on social media who were basically cheering that he was dead, or that? Is it this whole idea of they're cheering that Charlie Kirk's dead, so now there's more people who think it's great to go out and target conservatives? Is that what this bill is supposed to protect against? I mean, this whole bill is very confusing anyway, and I want to get into the text in a minute. But just kind of something to ponder.
The government dictate what social media companies can keep up or down.
No, it's the other way around. Look, one thing that ought to unite everybody on the political spectrum is nobody should be trusting the social media platforms to be the guardians of our free speech.
But social media companies...
Wait, hold on. Does that mean we're trusting the government to be the guardians of our free speech? Who are we trusting?
Right. You took the words out of my mouth. That was, we should be trusting bureaucrats and legislators in Sacramento, because who's going to be policing this? Probably some sort of bureaucratic agency that they're going to set up is going to be protecting our free speech by looking out for hateful content that they don't like.
Are fighting the bill and have warned that it violates the First Amendment.
While the bill seeks to hold platforms accountable for egregious behavior, its structure risks sweeping in protected speech and imposing extraordinary penalties based on subjective judgments about user content, including content the platform did not create.
X's global government affairs account posted, in part, it's alarming that California lawmakers sworn to uphold the Constitution have so brazenly ignored their oath. Governor Gavin Newsom has until October 13th to decide what to do with it. At the state capitol, Ashley Zavala, KCRA 3 News.
Well, we reached out to the governor for comment.
All right. So that's a little bit about SB 771. Let's pull up the exact text here. A lot of people in the chat are getting this right. It doesn't fine you personally. So let's just get that out of the way. It's not fining individuals personally. So it's not going after you. So if you say something hateful that they deem, well, I say hateful. It's a subjective term that they may call hateful. But they may say it's hateful, and then they go after the social media company. And then what that does is it creates this fear with the social media companies that anything that's borderline could be hateful. They're just going to start taking down. So they don't fine you, but think of it as a good way to think about it is like, let's go back to 2020 when COVID was rampant. And social media companies and Google even admitted recently that the Biden administration leaned on them really heavily in 2021 to kind of censor speech that was against their vaccine and COVID protocols. Now imagine that scenario today where California bureaucrats can lean on these social media companies and say, well, if you don't stop this hateful speech, we're going to start fining you $500 to $1 million for every single infraction. And that adds up. I mean, with the amount of people who are online every single day, that could add up really quickly, even for these big social media giants who don't want to be paying tens of millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars out. So what happens is the social media companies then get trigger happy, where everything they don't think is everything that could be questionable, they're going to start getting rid of you or banning you or shadow banning you or something like that, which is exactly what happened during COVID, which is anything that the federal government didn't like or thought was dangerous under COVID protocols. They're like, oh, you can't question vaccines. You can't bring up this. You can't bring up that. You can't ask whether immunity is fine. All that stuff, because we're getting pressure from the federal government. Now we have to start taking all this stuff down. But now that the tide has turned and there's a cultural shift with Trump in the White House, and I think also Elon taking over X has kind of changed a lot of this, things seem to be a lot more open-ended. Even Mark Zuckerberg got rid of his fact-checking office or whatever. He is no longer as a fact-checking team. It's basically like the Wild West out here on social media again. So that's where it kind of impinges on our free speech on these platforms, because now all of a sudden they're going to start clamping down on what people can say. And I know there's the whole, well, the First Amendment doesn't protect what private companies do and that stuff, but it tangentially, the government kind of threatening these private companies to shut down speech, I think is that's when the government starts getting involved. And then it becomes an issue of the government stepping in and trampling on your free speech. Before we get into the text, did you have any thoughts?
I have thoughts and questions. Real quick, sure. I believe Google is actually a public company. Alphabet, which owns Google, YouTube, etc. And so I know that the government can impose certain regulations, and I know you're going to get into the legal side of this, which I appreciate, but something about this, like as you mentioned, they're going to start censoring us in the sense of we might be allowed to say it, but then if they're threatened with, $500,000 to $1 million per offense, of course they're going to start shadow banning us or, deleting our post or whatever, telling us it goes against their guidelines, all that sort of stuff. So I think a few interesting things about this is that, it was last year, I'm sorry, my text message, last year that Mark Zuckerberg admitted he was under pressure from the Biden administration to censor what they deemed misinformation for COVID. And then he went on Joe Rogan in January. And then this bill was authored, I think, in February. And interesting timing is that it passed the 22nd, like September 22nd, last week. And then the 23rd was when that letter came out from Google saying the Biden administration had pressured them into removing certain content. I can say the word as well. I thought that was such interesting timing. I had a point. I was going somewhere with this. Oh, okay. So this law, if signed, doesn't go into effect until January 2027. And again, this is one of those things where I feel like that's when we know that Newsom will be like announcing his presidency. You know, he'll be announcing his campaign. And it's almost like I need to silence them when it's my time to shine, and I need to make sure that anything, you know, because now that they've admitted they were pressured under the Biden administration, he's kind of like, and I know he didn't author this, but I feel like he's like maybe a little bit shaking in his boots over there with like, how do I get them quiet again? And this only applies to large social media platforms that are based in California, but that is, you know, Meta, however you say it, which is Facebook, Threads, Instagram, and then there's X, and then Google, YouTube. So I think LinkedIn too, Pinterest. I don't think anyone's being political on Pinterest, but who knows? So yeah, this is kind of wild. Also the timing again, because it was like 10 days ago that they were all in tears and, you know, clutching their pearls over Jimmy Kimmel possibly being canceled. And this is the government canceling him. This is the government blocking free speech. And we can't have the government interfering with free speech. And yet this is the government interfering with free speech. So what? Dude, I said to you before we hopped on, California is absolutely drunk right now. Like they don't even know what the heck they're doing at this point. It's insanity, you guys. Okay.
Yeah, I had a thought about it. Legally. All right, let's take a look at the language, because I had a thought and then I was going to say something. But all right, so this is the bill itself. California law prohibits all persons and entities, including corporations, from engaging in, aiding, abetting, or conspiring to commit acts of violence, intimidation, or coercion based on race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, immigration status, or other protected characteristics. These are well-established civil rights statutes. California has a compelling interest, and I'll get into that in a second, why they put compelling interest in protecting its residents from targeted threats, violence, and coercive harassment, particularly when directed at historically marginalized groups. That interest is especially acute in light of rising incidents of hate-motivated harm, as documented across the state as follows. The LA County Commission on Human Relations reported in 2024 that hate crimes involving anti-immigrant slurs increased by 31%, which marks the highest since 2007. Human Rights Campaign Center for Countering Digital Hate have documented a 400% rise in anti-LGBTQ plus disinformation, harmful rhetoric. According to the Department of Justice, data anti-Jewish bias events rose by 52.9%, and anti-Islamic bias events rose by 62% in 2023. We'll keep going on. In light of these trends, the legislature affirms the urgent need to ensure that Californian civil rights protections apply with equal force in the digital sphere. The purpose of this act is to not regulate speech or viewpoint, also a really important thing, but to clarify that social media platforms, like all other businesses, may not knowingly use their systems to promote, facilitate, or contribute to conduct that violates state civil right laws. And then also it goes on to the punishment all the way down here. So, couple things about this. First off, there are things that Mr. Howard put in here because I think he thought this would get him past any court under First Amendment or the California Constitution. And I had talked about this, that the California Constitution, its liberty of speech clause is actually broader than that of the First Amendment. So it actually protects more than what the First Amendment protects. So there was a case law that I had cited. It's the Pruneyard case, where basically it said that there's free speech rights. You have liberty of speech even at a private forum like a shopping mall. because it's a place where people go and they gather and they were handing out pamphlets, and their speech, that was free speech, was allowed to get them to hand out pamphlets. Now, fast forward to today, let's think of like the digital shopping mall, the public forum where people are. It's social media, and people are on social media and they're giving out their ideas and they're giving out information and they're putting up posts and people like them or they don't like them and stuff like that. And you have free speech. So does the California Constitution apply in this case? Absolutely. Do I think it's bigger than the First Amendment and that it protects more? Absolutely. The two things that are important here, and I don't really want to bore people, but if you have thoughts or comments in the chat, you can let me know if I can clarify them for you. One, they say California has a compelling interest in protecting its residents. Whenever the government comes up with a law regulating speech, and it's based on content of that speech, and in this case, it's the content of the speech that they're regulating, which is, well, we don't like what you're saying about this group or that group, and we think it's hateful, and that's content, because you literally are saying, whatever you are saying, the content of your speech, we don't like, so we're going to start regulating it. The only way that they have found in Supreme Court jurisprudence or case law precedents is there has to be a compelling interest for why you're regulating this speech. Anything content-based has to go under this thing called the strict scrutiny test. And that basically means a compelling interest. You need a compelling interest. And a compelling state interest is like the highest bar to pass for the person who's writing this law. And compelling state interest is usually like national security. Like, we need to protect the country. So that's why this is a compelling state interest. Other than that, there's not really a lot that passes compelling state interest and the strict scrutiny test. So I think Mr. Howard thought he was being clever by saying, oh, there's a compelling interest. But is it a compelling interest? Like, is it that important to trample on people's right to free speech because you want to start policing subjectively what you think is hateful or harmful speech on social media? And then it goes on to say, there is an urgent need to ensure California civil rights protections apply with equal force in the digital sphere. The purpose of this act is to not regulate speech or viewpoint. That's actually exactly what this is doing. This is exactly regulating.
It's so urgent. It's not going to go into effect until 2027.
It's very urgent that we have to wait a whole year. Probably because they have to set some bureaucratic agency up, some bureaucratic watchdog. But he says, oh, the purpose of this act is not to regulate speech. Basically, he's trying to get around that whole content-based argument. Well, it's not content-based because we're not regulating your speech or your viewpoint. Okay, then what are you regulating? Because your whole thing is we're going after every time we see social media allowing or promoting hateful speech. Okay, that's someone's speech or their viewpoint on something, and that's what you're regulating. So those two things that he tried to be clever and figure, well, if I just throw these things in there, it's going to stand up in court. And in reality, it's not going to stand up in court. That's my professional opinion. It's not going to stand up in court because you're regulating based on the content of the speech. The First Amendment is very against content-based speech regulations. The California Constitution, liberty of speech, is even broader. So in the end, do I think this is ever going to see the light of day? It may not even get signed. You know, Governor Newsom, who we know is a very savvy politician, knows that if he signs something like this, it will be hung over his head in 2028 about him trying to trample speech. Oh, this was my last point that I wanted to talk about, because you had brought it up about Newsom running in 2028. It's funny how, and this goes for both parties really, when social media was working against you, that party wanted to crack down on social media. So in 2020, it was Trump who was all about repeal Section 230. We don't need to Section 230. It's harmful because they're censoring me or whatever he was saying back then. So he wanted to repeal Section 230, which ironically would be the federal law that protects the social media companies from liability of what's published on their websites and on their platforms. So Section 230 actually comes all the way full circle and protects the social media companies and strikes down something like this. But now, because social media has changed completely with Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg changing their tune, and it's helped like the conservative movement in the whole country, now all of a sudden it's not really a big issue for Republicans. But because Democrats have lost control of social media and it's no longer beneficial to them, they don't have them in their back pocket anymore where they can go tell Mark Zuckerberg, hey, go censor that person. Go censor that person on Facebook and Instagram. Hey, gosh, what's his name? The old CEO of Twitter. Jack Dorsey. Hey, Jack, go censor these people on Twitter. Ban Donald Trump off it. Like, get all these people off. We don't like these people on Twitter spreading like what we don't like. Speech we hate. They call it hate speech. I think it's speech they hate. Now it's flipped the other way. Democrats are like, whoa, now we need to regulate social media because they're saying stuff that we don't like about us, and they're spreading all this different information. So it's interesting, the power dynamic of like when the shoe's on the other foot, Democrats, when social media companies were in their back pocket, Democrats love social media companies. But now because it's flipped completely and there's been this whole cultural movement and cultural change, now they want to regulate the hell out of social media and penalize them. So, I hope that helps. If anybody has any questions in the comments, or if you have any questions and thoughts, Camille, let me know.
This is totally different, I know, but this reminded me of my own lawsuit, which was based off of social media content that I had put up, where I questioned a political candidate, and I was sued into silence over it, or sued to be silenced, I should say. I don't know how much I should share because I need to be careful, but you were my lawyer, we won. But I was definitely sued to be silenced over raising questions of a political candidate. And that's exactly what they're trying to prevent here, I think, is they don't want their party to be like, they don't want people putting out information that is like, well, this particular person, this particular politician, because I could easily say something about my next door neighbor. My next door neighbor is fantastic. She's my friend, but my next door neighbor on social media. And then someone could decide that I am basing it off of her race or her sexual orientation, or that she's running for an office and she's the opposite political party of mine. And now it's, if YouTube allows me to say this, or if Instagram allows me to keep up the post or whatever, it's hate speech. And now they're pushing it, and now they're being fined somewhere up to $1 million. I feel like, yes, this already isn't going to stand up in court because of Section 230, because of free speech, because of the First Amendment and everything. But I can also see that if this does go through, I think the state of California is just going to be sued left and right immediately, because as soon as they're trying to fine, they're gonna be like, oh, we're not paying that, we're just gonna take our business out of California and sue you. Like,
yep,
that's what I see happening here. I don't think that these large companies are gonna bow to Newsom and the Democrats and be like, oh, okay, we, our algorithm pushed that content, and so here's $1 million, here's $3 million. Oh, didn't mean to do it again. No, they're gonna leave. They're just gonna be like, okay, we now operate Facebook, Instagram, YouTube out of Delaware, whatever. They're not going to be here.
Nope. And I don't even know how you prove that they were knowingly or willingly promoting that stuff. Like,
that's what I was going to say. Sorry,
I have
that's
no idea
that was
how you
what
promote
happened.
that.
A lawsuit was that there was the burden of proof of like, were they being malicious or were they genuinely asking questions? So that's why. Sorry, that's how I was going to wrap it up in comparison to my lawsuit. It was that. How do you prove exactly that their intent was bad, their algorithm, they pushed it, whatever?
Someone had asked, why do anything, said, isn't that forcing the platforms to go against the Constitution? Not that it hasn't happened before. Yeah, you're forcing the platforms. And in that video, they kind of shows some of the lawyers from Meta were there at the Capitol saying, like, you can't do this as an infringement on free speech, because it's the government forcing a platform to change and regulate speech on their behalf. That's, I think, the causal connection here. Now, assuming the reason that this makes the free speech argument and the libertarian argument is, Well, they're a private company. They can do whatever they want. However, if it was a private company that just started one day and they said, let's take like Rumble, for example. And I'm not saying this is what Rumble does. Let's say Rumble started and they said, guess what? We're going to be a completely conservative YouTube. We're not going to let anybody who's left leaning on Rumble. Okay? Doesn't matter. It's our platform. We pay for it, whatever. They're allowed to do that as a private company. You just got to deal with it. You got to play ball. The problem is when the government steps in and starts forcing these private companies to do it on their behalf, that's when it becomes an issue. And it also becomes an issue with chilling free speech, where people now stop speaking or allowing speech because of government threats and government fines. So that's basically what these companies are going to do, or what they're being forced to do, is violate people's free speech via the government. So it's a little bit of a tangential thing, and they're trying to dance around it and say, well, we're not stepping on your right to free speech because we're really just going after the companies. And it's like, well, the companies are now changing their tune and how they do things because you're forcing them to do so or threatening them with $1 million fines. A lot of people are bringing up what's going on in UK. Yeah, the UK is nuts what's going on over there. I feel bad for them. It's very sad. I love the UK. I love the people over there. It's a great country. Scotland, London, love it all. Love it all. So I feel very sad when I see what's going on. Let's see.
We could discuss that at length in Telegram if we do the Telegram channel, because we could probably start to, I don't want to go totally off subject here, but in 1997, they basically banned private gun ownership. They didn't fully. Like, if you go and Google that, you're gonna be like, no, you're wrong. But no, I know they have a right to own a gun under certain conditions, but it's like 1997 was not quite 20 years ago. Was it? Am I doing math right? No, it was a little over 20 years ago. Sorry.
A little over 20 years.
So,
oh my gosh, it's almost 30 years, right?
It's not that long. Yeah, I mean, it's I'm old, whatever, but it's in the grand scheme of life, it wasn't that long for them to ban private gun ownership to now you don't have free speech. Haha, what are you going to do about it? You can't defend yourself against the government. And I'm not encouraging anyone to go violent on the government. I'm not. And again, that's a different subject for a different day. But it's just interesting how you've heard, not just us, but you've heard it all over, and probably when you say it, the Second Amendment protects the First Amendment. Like, it's just, they don't have that there.
Yeah. Someone else had brought up, let me pull this up. Oh, someone said, so the opposite of Blue Sky. Yeah, basically. Well, Blue Sky started because they want to be the anti-X. And yeah, that's where all the people who lean left went after. But I'm fine with that. I'm fine with companies that want to start and be like, hey, we're only here to do X, Y, and Z. And, if you're not that, you can't be on this platform. Okay, that's fine. You're a private company. I'm fine with that. Free market. Do whatever you want. My problem is when the government steps in and starts putting their thumb on the scale. And this is absolutely a clear-cut case of where they are putting their thumb on the scale to try and scare social media companies into complying and taking down whatever they think is their hateful speech or speech that they hate. I know we've had the screen share up for a while, but there was another bill you told me about right before we hopped on, and I hadn't really read into it, but it's kind of interesting. It was also Rick Chavez-Aver, who was also a co-author of 771. And look, Scott Wiener's also a co-author of it. Interesting. In April 2024, Governor Gavin Newsom released the Golden State Plan to counter anti-Semitism. They want to set up what do they call it? The counterterrorism group or something, the counterterrorism commission or counter anti-Semitism commission or something.
Where is it? I have notes here. They want to amend the education code to prevent discrimination with a strong emphasis on anti-Semitism in public schools. It prohibits. They wanted to nominate
Oh, the Anti-Semitism
sort of
Prevention Coordinator.
Yes, coordinator.
Develop, consult, and provide anti-Semitism education to school personnel to identify and proactively prevent anti-Semitism and to make recommendations in coordination with you on legislation necessary for the prevention of anti-Semitism in educational settings. I'm so confused.
I started laughing because when I was reading this the first time, I was like, yeah, I'm still homeschooling. And I'm sorry, because I am not saying that like in a defensive way to anybody who doesn't or can't homeschool. But just for me, I was reading this and I started laughing and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to continue to homeschool. This not changing anytime soon. I just think really one more ridiculous thing to add to public education. California's drunk with power, drunk with stupidity. I don't know what's going on here, guys.
Go home, California. You're drunk. All right. Last story I want to get to, which was the title of this episode. And I'm sorry I kept you guys waiting, but thank you everyone for hanging out and chatting with us. Chat is lively as always. If you joined late, we did start off the show talking about a Telegram, a members only Telegram, where we can take conversations like this onto Telegram outside of the show, not getting rid of the show, but like outside of the show. So if we want to talk about UK and what's going on there, because I like talking about what's going on in the UK, we could talk about stuff like that. It doesn't always have to be fully California politics, but there's a lot of news going on out there. So we'd love to have you guys there. So if you're interested, let us know in the chat, in the comment, if you'd be interested in joining a members only Telegram. I think we said it was like, we're thinking about $2.99 a month or something and trying to make it as...
Yeah, it would basically be like on your Instagram at California Underground, you would subscribe to his channel for like,
or you could be a member here on YouTube.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If you're a member here on YouTube, then you can also do the same thing.
You would get the link to the private group, which would be all of us discussing. Like everyone's welcome to, post questions, articles, news, pop culture, other culture, religion,
all that stuff,
national, international, just really like dive into issues. It could be very, very fun, very interesting.
Yeah. Basically anything. So,
and not that Phil's going to go and give free legal advice, but he is a lawyer and can give a lawyer perspective on a lot of issues. So that's always fun and interesting.
Yep. All right. Last story. We're going to end on a high note. That turns out Republicans and independents and libertarians and Green Party have all been killing it with voter registration and have outpaced Democrats this year in 2025. So we're going to watch this video. This is about Stanislaus County, which is pretty historic. And then we'll break down some numbers and we'll talk about sort of the repercussion.
For the first time in a decade, Republicans now outnumber Democrats in Stanislaus County voter registration.
Your reporter covering Stanislaus County, Nina Burns, is getting answers on the trend.
County Republicans call this flip a political milestone as they take the lead in voter registration.
We're super excited. We saw it trending in this direction.
New numbers show Stanislaus County Republican voter registration surpassed Democratic registration for the first time in a decade. A jump from February when Democrats were nearly 1,400 ahead.
We're close. We're almost there. And so we just made a really strong drive this entire year. And the data shows.
As of September, there are nearly 109,000 registered Republicans and just over 108,000 Democrats, giving Republicans a 570 voter lead.
It's not just observations or subjective. It's real.
But Democratic strategists say numbers fluctuate when there are no elections.
Registrations come and go, particularly during the off season. We're not in the heat of a real presidential race or anything where everybody's fired up. We see those numbers go up and go down.
But when it comes to presidential election results, the county has seen a shift. In 2016, Stanislaus went blue by just under 2%. In 2020, the Democratic majority was razor thin, winning by less than 1%. Then in 2024, Stanislaus County went red, with Republicans leading by nearly 11%.
They're the exception to the rule. Democrats are doing very well across the state, particularly in the more urban counties where there are a lot more voters. Democrats outnumber Republicans statewide by almost a 2-to-1 margin.
We continue to push all through the 2026 election cycle to ensure that this
that our majority stays.
Republicans say they plan to continue community outreach to keep this lead, while Democrats say the lead is narrow enough for it to still swing back in their favor.
Nina, thank you. And the Republican Party of Stanislaus County credits that flip to community engagement and targeting Democratic areas.
So you might be wondering whether demographics have shifted in other counties. Let's take a look in Sacramento County between February 2023 and February 2025. Democrats saw another 5,200 voters added to its rolls, while Republicans picked up 19,000 new voters, although Democrats still outnumber Republicans in Sac County 2-1.
In San Joaquin County, during that same 2-year span, Republicans picked up 10,000 voters while Democrats lost 8,000, though they still account for 40% of voters compared to 30% for Republicans.
All right. So that is the news on that. I see a lot of people who are kind of like poo-pooing this and being like, oh, well, Democrats still outnumber Republicans 2-1. Okay, well, a long journey starts with one step. Like, it takes a long time to flip a state, and we've said this on this show for a long time, ever since I've started like 8 years ago. It takes a long time. Like, flipping a state doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to flip the state red overnight. You're not going to flip it out of a Democratic supermajority overnight. You got to chip away at it. You got to chip away slowly but surely. It's like turning around an aircraft carrier. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of work. So this is the two tweets that I saw this on. California voter registration since February. Independents outpacing Democrats 435-1. Republicans outpacing Democrats 253-1. Democrats basically flat. That's not politics. That's math. This is from Rob Pyers. If you're a political nerd like us, he posts a lot of stuff like this. Here's the recap. The net change in registered voters by political party in California since February. Independents are killing it. No party preference are killing it. 82,000 more. Republicans added 48,000. The American Independent Party, which I'm wondering if people think that the American Independent Party is being independent. Like, there's people who want to be independent. Like, they don't want to be any part of any party. I wonder if but that'd be a huge margin of people picking that incorrectly. Otherwise, the American Independent Party is just also killing it. Peace and Freedom, sure. They picked up almost 6,000. And Green Party picked up almost 2,500. And Libertarian Party pulling up their rear at 487. Come on, Libertarian Party. You gotta do a little bit better than that. And Democratic Party only added 190 in the entire state.
That's over a 7-month period?
7-month period. Yeah, they only added 200 voter registrations in the entire state.
Not even 200. I gotta do the math on that.
Well, while you do the math,
190?
190.
So like 27 a month?
That is not very good in a state.
It's not a good look, Democrats.
No.
Maybe your party needs to change a few things. Yeah, you have, for as long as I've known you, you've always used the phrase progress to purple. Mm-hmm. People have been like, it's going to be a red wave, and then it's not a red wave. It's going to be a red wave, and it's not a red wave. And but we have seen, it seems like, for the past few election cycles, slowly but surely, it's a little more red. And yes, they do outnumber us, but I believe in breaking the supermajority. I don't believe in having a supermajority of one party. That's my personal opinion, not talking for Phil or anyone else. Like, my big thing has just been like, we just need balance. We are so unbalanced right now. And I don't think that any party should have a supermajority, because people need to learn to just work together and, pass legislation that benefits the majority. You're never going to please everybody. But right now we have, as we just talked about, 2 crazy bills. And it's like, who is this even for? What? It's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's crazy out there. So, there just needs to be things that benefit the majority of us. And I don't think that you're going to get that with a supermajority red or a supermajority blue. And so it is nice to see a little bit of turning a little more red, turning a little more purple. Like, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, all these states slowly change over time. I like to use Florida as an example of, like, Florida was back in 2000, Florida was a swing state.
Yeah.
And then Barack Obama won it twice. And now it is solidly red. Like, it is beaming bright red. Like, it's not even like a swing state. They try and pretend it's a swing state. It's not really a swing state anymore. Republicans have taken it off the map. But look at it that way. It took 16, 20 years for it to go from a swing state to a state that voted for Barack Obama twice to a deep red state that now, like, Miami flipped red, which was never red for a long, long time. These things do take a long time, and California is going to take a long time because Democrats just racked up such like a huge lead that it's going to take a long time. And there's a lot of people I saw on Reddit, and Reddit's a cesspool of people who are left-leaning statists and stuff like that. So no surprise that they're all downplaying this like it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. And I'll tell you why. It's the reason why I'm wearing my Local Elections Matter shirt. Because local elections do matter. They absolutely matter. And a lot of these local elections are decided by like less than 1,000 votes. Like, the one I always bring up is Greg Wallace out in Palm Springs flipped his assembly seat with like less than 300 votes or something. Or it was like even less than that. I think it was like 67 votes or something like that. It was so marginally.
I feel like it was under 100. It was.
Yeah. It was like
so low.
So razor thin that he flipped it. And now he's he won again. He won a re-election. So he's held that seat for 2 terms now. But that's where it's going to make a huge difference in California. California is an enormous state. There are hundreds of city councils and mayors and city governments and county supervisors and stuff like that. This makes a difference on the local level, where these races often are decided by less than 1,000, by less than 500,000. And, you saw it right there with like Stockton or San Joaquin Valley or San Joaquin County. That was a huge
Stanislaus County.
It's Stanislaus, San Joaquin, all of them. Like, adding 10,000 voters is a huge deal. Like, that's a huge deal in a county of like, okay, before we didn't have these voters, now we have 10,000 more voters, and that changes the layout of that county and how people vote in their certain city districts and their different county districts. Do county supervisors, boards of supervisors all of a sudden go from blue to red? Does it change their policies on the ground? Are these little pockets of like, now you're flipping things away from Democrats? Those little pockets of localities start to help create the groundswell that changes things. And yeah, maybe they'll keep saying, well, we have a 2-1 lead. Who cares? Like, it's not a big deal. Like, they're never going to win governor. They're never going to win Secretary of State. But you can let them keep thinking that. Let those, far left statist Democrats keep thinking that they'll never catch up. We have a 2-1 lead. Who cares? We're fine. Let them keep thinking that and rest on their laurels. And then if it's year after year after year where it's this continued kind of growth in voter registration where they got 200 over 7 months, but then like Republicans got 42,000, that adds up over the course of year after year after year, and it changes things dramatically. And that's where I think people like have to be excited about this. Is it could change your city, it could change your county, it could change so many things. It could change your assemblyman, your state senator, all those things. And breaking the supermajority, which we harp on again and again and again, is probably the single most important thing when it comes to California politics outside of who's governor. Because governor could be Republican or Democrat, but if it's a Democratic supermajority, they can do whatever the hell they want. Anyway, I think breaking the supermajority changes California overnight. I think it changes. You don't see wacko bills like this anymore that we went over. They don't see the light of day. They don't get out of committee. They don't even get to the governor's desk. AB 495, this one, SB 771, this other one that we just talked about tonight, 715, like all these bills that are wacko doodle bills that people look at and go, what the heck is California thinking? They don't get out of committee anymore when there's no more Democratic supermajority. And that's the change, is like, Now all of a sudden we're getting back to business of making the state better. So that's my little soapbox rant. So what are your thoughts?
I think you somewhat repeated what I said, but yeah, 11% difference. Red majority in Stanislaus County. That's huge. 11% is a big number when it comes to voting. Really is. It's big. Like, I think anything over 5%, it's like not even close anymore. So, and they're up near Sacramento. Like, Sacramento's going to have to start paying attention.
Cool. Yeah, because it was red and then it went blue, and now it's like slowly creeping back to red. Somebody had asked about judges. There is a page, Judge Voter Guide, that does actually go over judges. That's also a big thing too. Like, people need to realize you vote on so many things every election. Like, you vote on so many officials, and I will admit, it takes homework. I do homework. I sit down and I get my sample ballot and I look at everything that I'm voting on, and I sit down and go, okay, what am I doing here? Like, what am I voting on? Who am I voting on? Sometimes is it a choice between the moderate Democrat or the radical leftist communist Democrat? Like, those are basically sometimes your choices, and you got to do your homework. And judges are a big one too, that a lot of people kind of overlook because they're like, I don't know. I just vote for the governor and I just kind of move on. And those are tougher because they're nonpartisan positions, so people don't know. They don't have that default of like, well, I'll just vote red down the ticket. Someone said, I love your map of California. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a mainstay of the background for a while. So, but yeah, local elections matter. This is a big deal. People are changing their minds. People just becoming no party preference is a big deal as well. A little disappointed in the Libertarian Party that they didn't do more, but I probably blame that on their egotistical, narcissistic chair right now. But we should get that Joe Campos guy on. Is that his name, Joe Campos, the head of the Stanislaus GOP? We should have him on and ask how he did it and how he flipped that county. That would be fun.
Yeah, I have no idea what his name is, but yes.
Camille's going to take notes and be like, okay, I'm going to reach out to this guy, Joe Campos. All right.
Only me. Tomorrow morning, you have homework, Camille.
Yep.
You have a job.
Camille's the one who she reaches out to people and bugs them because she bugs them better than I do. I would send an email and be like, I forgot about it. They don't ever email me back. All right. Any other thoughts? We went a little over because we started a little late today, but yeah, a lot of people hanging out. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts in the comments about the Telegram idea, about the local elections, anything going on in the chat? Let's see. Why don't you share your thoughts, and I'll see if anybody has any good comments that I can share.
My thoughts? I feel like I shared my thoughts throughout this podcast. But okay, personally, I like the idea of the Telegram channel. So I'm kind of pushing for it, but that's really up to if we even have the support. But I like the idea of it because I am a stay-at-home mom who has extra time, and I like to discuss these things. And so, it's just in addition to the podcast to be able to have these conversations and get all different perspectives. And so, are you reading?
Yeah, I'm reading comments. Someone said, I vote in all local elections. Good. More and more classic liberals.
Yeah, don't forget, Prop 50 is coming up November 4th. You're probably, if you haven't received your ballot yet, don't be surprised if you get it in the next week. Don't be scared if you haven't received it yet. But Prop 50 is super important, as we discussed it at the beginning. You can vote yes to give it over to the Democrats and their little private who drew the maps group, or keep it with the independent district. Voting no. Yes, I know they trip up the wording and all that, but it's definitely vote no to keep it with the independent district. Vote yes if you want this, if you want to side with Newsom and his fight against Trump or whatever, or abortion, whatever they're fighting. I'm not sure anymore. Sorry, making jokes, but we talked about, if you missed, we talked about at the beginning of this episode. So that election's coming up 34 days, 35 days, very soon.
So I want to add,
and Phil's turning 40 this week, next week, Sunday. Monday,
thanks.
sometime in October next month.
Someone couldn't believe that. Someone couldn't believe that I was turning 40. So I did share in the chat. It's judgevoterguide.com. That's where I go. It doesn't have like everybody, but that's been like my go-to if you're ever curious about judges and you're like, I don't know. They send out questionnaires. Sometimes the judges don't answer the questionnaires. That's fine, but at least it gives you an idea. The cat lady next to me has the vote yes on 50 sign in her yard. The Iceman. Iceman always coming in with the great comments at the end. Love it, Iceman. All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Sounds like there's support for the Telegram, so we'll start talking about that and how that's going to happen and go down. That'd be great. I think it'd be fun to have a Telegram where we can share and just talk about different issues that we want. Maybe talk about the UK and stuff like that. Everything else that's going on. But with that said, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, review, all that stuff. It helps with the algorithm. I'm still trying to figure out why they can't hype our videos right now. I've contacted YouTube. They're supposed to be able to hype our videos to get it pushed up in the algorithm. But with that said, the best thing you can do to support the show that is 100% free is you can tell someone about it, tell them to join you, say, hey, join me Tuesday night at 8 p.m. on YouTube. Join the chat. It'll be fun. Not next week, though. It'll be Wednesday or Thursday. We'll let you know about that. And we will see you on the next one. Later, everybody.